Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, please type 1. Okay, good. So it's me again, Dr. Samah Abdul Jalil, and this is EL111. 111. I'm sorry, and this is, of course, EL121N. It's quite a mouthful also. I mean, the course title is very long. So how are you? How is things? Did you have a chance to read the 2 short stories? Very interesting, very engaging, and very relatable, given the fact that 99% of the class are female individuals, if I may. That should be very relatable. So okay. So let me just establish this. Did you manage to read the 2 short stories? Yes, that's good. That's good. Okay, okay. So happy that you guys managed to read the 2 short stories. Because we need to talk, actually we need to talk about the 2 of them, and we need to kind of strike comparisons between the 2. I mean, reading only Mona Ragab's short story would be a little bit it wouldn't satisfy us, I mean, because it's such a short story. I mean, it is true that it has ideas and themes, but the other short story is perhaps you know, more poignant and more. It has lots of ideas that we'll discuss together today, inshallah. Don't ask me questions about the TMA. Don't go on private and ask me questions, okay? If you need to talk about something, talk in front of everyone, okay? But this is a little bit disruptive and distracting, and I don't want to get distracted, okay? Thank you. Okay. So again, today we'll have a lot of stuff to cover today, and like I said, this course is very interesting and very engaging, and perhaps what is interesting about it is that you guys are introduced to and exposed to different genres. This is one thing, and also the fact that we have individual works. You don't have like one solid piece of work that stays with you for weeks and weeks. No, every week we have a different you know, short story or a play or a poem. So this is like I said, is very interesting. Okay, so let's cut to the chase and go to what we have. Remember, we are working within the framework of fiction. Like we said, week 1 and week 2 are going to be all about fiction, and of course by now you know what fiction means. We spoke enough about fiction, and we said that fiction can be novels, can be short stories, can be novellas. We're talking about the elements of fiction, and when I talk about the elements of fiction, you automatically understand that I am either talking about novels or short stories, right? So what we have short stories. We have Mona Ragab's short story, right? Which is titled "I Will Tomorrow," and the other short story is by Mona Bakr, and it's called or titled the Beautiful Undiscovered Voice. And we'll have a short story coming up by Tayyib Saleh. Perhaps we can explore it next week, inshallah. So I need impressions about the short story. Remember, the mic facility is available. If you would like to come to the mic and speak, that would be fine. like I said the other day, and we need to diversify how we do stuff here. You type, you speak, right? So let's make it as lively as we possibly can by diversifying the way we do stuff here. So if you would like to come to the mic and talk about your impressions about the 2 short stories, that would be fine. Okay. So who are we starting with? I need somebody. None. Hello. You're shy, or the mic facility that does not work on your end. Any response at all? No response. Whoa. Yeah, Yasmin is saying that we're here. I know that you guys are here, but I would like it to be very interactive and lively. No, it's okay. It's okay. If you don't start now, you'll never do it. I mean, in a course as diverse as the one we have, I think you were experimenting with everything. So you need to also experiment with with your voice, with your presentation skills. Okay. So it's not intimidating at all, right? So just take it easy, say what you have to say, and that will be it. Just try to talk. I mean, okay, I'm asking you a question, respond to the question, and that would be it. Okay, if not, it's okay. Maha is saying that I will try. Tomorrow seems to be very simple in a negative way. She says that it is very expectable. That's interesting. Layla is saying, can you play? And I'm not going to talk about the assignment now. Okay, we don't talk about the assignment now. This is class time. We keep the assignment till the end of the class. Make no mistake about it. Okay, just focus on what we're doing, because this is what is getting you to the assignment. I don't unless you understand what we're talking about, you wouldn't be able to answer the assignment in a correct way. So it's about what we do, and what we do is exploring ideas, talking about them, making sure that you guys understand the different genres that we're dealing with, the different techniques that we are addressing. Okay. Okay, so I'm not going to ask you to come to the mic, because obviously you're either shy or lazy today, which is I don't know, is it understandable? And I don't know why don't you come to the mic? Oh, okay, it's okay. So so remember, we're talking about the elements of fiction. Okay, and what are the elements of fiction that we have spoken about last time? Remember, we spoke about setting, plot, right? What else? Setting, plot. Okay, so let's talk first of all about the elements of fiction, and I'll leave the floor to you so that you can talk about the individual short stories that we're dealing with. Let's establish the elements first. Let's talk about them, and then make the transition to the practical part, which is like I said, the 2 short stories. Okay, so so we have setting, we have characters, we have plot, we have point of view, and we have theme, and style also. Style is all of this. Okay, so again, the elements of fiction, whenever I have a piece of fiction, which could be a novel or a short story, it has elements that I need to be on the lookout about when I read the short story or the novel. So what are these elements? Like I said, you have setting, you have characters, you have point of view, right? You have theme, and you also have plot. Okay. Do they have any specific hierarchy or arrangement when I deal with them? No, not at all. When you read a short story, I mean, they normally come, or you explore them naturally. Okay, so they don't have a specific arrangement or a specific order. Okay, fine. So how can we explore them in the short stories that we have? Let's implement what we have understood when we talk about the elements. Okay. Okay. So let's take the elements. Let's before we talk about the elements and try to look for them in the first short story. Okay, which is I Will Tomorrow by Mona Ragab. Let's talk briefly about the short story in terms of what it means. Okay, just wait. Somebody's saying I want to get into the rhythm of the class and then I can participate. No problem. That's the okay, Abdul Wahab. Maisa is saying I will try tomorrow. This is of course the story. I love the story. Maisa is saying that she loves the story. It is simple, but it touches the feeling for each mother who wants to have her own time working on her passion, but her family responsibilities or responsibility is a priority for her. Well said, Maisa. Okay, so again, it's a short story, which means that we have a story. So do we have a story? Do we have a story in the first place? Do we have a traditional story where we have a beginning and middle and an end? Do we have that? I doubt it very much. I mean, it's okay. So do you agree with me that it is more about ideas than structure? Do you agree with me that the short story is more about ideas? Small as it is about ideas and issues than about, having a traditional short story. What do you think? Ahmad is saying it has scattered ideas, which yeah. Okay, Reem is saying the short story is short but contains many ideas. I quite agree. Yeah, that's well said, Reem. Okay, so if you're looking for a traditional short story, you may be disappointed, right? You wouldn't have that. Okay, the pace is also very wet. The pace is quick or slow. What do you think? The pace of the short story. Do we have details? No, we don't. Yeah, Maha is saying no, we don't. Yeah, the pace is quick, like Abdul Mohsin is saying. Yes, absolutely. Right? No details are provided. Okay. So again, if we're looking for a traditional story where there is a beginning, a middle, and an end, bad luck. We don't have that. Okay, this is more or less a short story of ideas and issues, right? Okay, good, nice. And what are the ideas and issues? Speaking of ideas and issues, what are these ideas and issues? Abdul Wahab is saying cultural issues. Can we specify? Hadil is saying about hope and optimism. Hadil, okay, Hadil Hussein. Other people are obviously typing, so that's why I'm waiting for them. Okay, so again, the reason why I'm not giving everything is that I would like you to think for yourself. I don't want to impose my interpretation on you. And this is you know, criticism. What we're doing is criticism, and criticism is individualistic. It can differ from one person to another depending on how you look at the work, depending on your background. Okay, so the idea of us all speaking in one voice and agreeing on issues is obviously not what criticism is about or for. Okay, so Ahmed Fawaz is saying, I would say mainly it's about her passion to write stories regardless of the idea being present. Many obstacles awaits her. Okay, that's good. Haya is saying take chances and find an opportunity. I mean, Haya, it seems, is trying to sum it up by saying that the short story is about taking chances and finding opportunities, which is more or less correct. Like I said, there is I wouldn't say with criticism you don't say correct, wrong. Okay, all the ideas that people come out with when they read are all right and correct, are all their interpretation and how they see the short story or the novel. So all is nice, all is correct, but you need to provide examples and illustrations. You need to also justify why you think what you think. I mean, if you believe that it is about this or that, you need to provide reasons. Okay, so Maisa is saying, I think short story is the short story is harder than novels or long stories because the writer has to deliver his opinion or message through few lines. Yeah, that's the challenge. Yeah, Maisa, you're partly correct. The fact that short stories are very condensed and very intensive. I mean, intensive in the sense that whatever you can say in a long novel of hundred of pages, you're saying in a few lines, in 2 to 3 pages, like the short story that we have. Yeah, hence the challenge. This is the real challenge that a short story writer meets or encounters. He or she has to be very brief, has to be very precise and to the point. Maha is saying the main idea is about being a mother and the conflict between desires and responsibility. Yeah, well said, well put, excellent. Yeah, Maha is summing up the whole situation. She's saying she sees a conflict in the short story between desires and responsibilities. Yeah, that can be a heading or a title in itself. Thank you, Maha, for being that eloquent and for being that precise. Abdul Wahab is saying the short story just like a quiz with a very short time to finish it correctly. This is the analogy is nice, yeah, Abdul Wahab. The analogy is interesting. Ahmad Fawaz is saying the title of the story is ironic. The idea in her story is to set the words free and write it down on the white sheets, and she has been delaying it for several nights, but it shows the commitment by saying, I will try tomorrow. That's amazing. That's Ahmad Al Fawaz. Thank you so much for getting to the grips, to the core of the short story. Thank you, Ahmed. Okay, any other insights? Very beautiful insights, mashallah. I'm so happy. You guys are reading. Your reading of the play is very mature, and reveals, exposure to other stories. It's you're not reading. Obviously, this is not your first experience with short stories and novels, and this is something that I'm happy about. So Haya Lujain is saying, yeah, it is. It is being okay. Yeah, it is. Lujain is asking about the recording. And like I said, I don't know whether I said that the other day, I'm recording it in 2 different ways so that nothing gets messed up. So I'll record it. So this is Dr. Sama, and this is EL121N class number 2, and we are on our way. Okay. Okay, so let's go back to what Hadil was saying. Obviously we stopped with Hadil, or Haya, I'm sorry. The writer succeeded in conveying the mother's feelings and the sacrifices she makes for her children. That's good. Okay, good, nice. Okay, so what we're talking about is mainly theme related. We're addressing issues, and issues are normally, or they normally come under the element of theme. Okay, Haya is saying the writer succeeded in conveying. Yeah, she has already. We have already spoken about that. Okay, so themes and ideas. So despite the fact that the short story is very short, it's only 3 pages long, if I'm not mistaken, it is pregnant with ideas, if you like. It has so many ideas. Okay, let me ask you another question. Perhaps this may relate more to the ladies that we have in class. Can you identify with the main character? Identify with somebody is that you see yourself in the character. You feel that she is representing you in a sense. So the young ladies that we have, do you identify with the main character? Do you find elements and pieces of you in what she is saying? Dima is saying yes. Hadil, I think she's a mother, and she's saying yeah, she's saying yeah. Okay. Noor, I don't know why she is typing 1. Okay, so this idea of identifying with the character is a measure of success on the part of the writer. If you can identify with the characters, if you can feel what they feel, it means that she did a good job, and a good job she did. Make no mistake about it, right? Okay. Okay, so now we're going to dissect and analyze the short story in terms of setting, in terms of point of view, in terms of plot, right? Remember these different elements of fiction. Okay, so let's talk about the first element, and the first element happens to be the setting, and the setting is time and place. So where are we in the short story, and what is the time? I'm asking you, by the way. Okay, so in terms of years, we don't have a specific time, and we have a small clue when she remember this exchange between the daughter and her mom, and when they spoke about obviously a massacre happening to small children in Lebanon. So you'll perhaps we need to go back and check and see when it happened. That can give us a clue about the time. Okay, otherwise it's going to be as specific as Dune or prior to Dune, on a day that we on an unidentified or undefined day, right? Maisa is saying that it can be summer because of the hot weather. Yeah, that's a good conclusion, Maisa. Thank you so much for this insight. Yeah, it can be summer. Okay. Okay, good, nice. I'll perhaps I'll be more philosophical, and I say that you don't have a specific time, which is a reference, or perhaps this is a reference or an indication that the short story is timeless. Timeless means that it applies always and everywhere. Always and everywhere means that it is universal. Universal in the sense that you're going to have this happening in Egypt. You can, I mean the time. Let's talk about the time first. It can be happening any time, whether in the past or in the present or in the future. You have this image. You always have this. You have a woman who is torn apart between her desires and her duties. She wants self-fulfillment, and she also has obligations and responsibilities that she awaiting her. Okay. So this is the time aspect. Let's move to the place aspect. Where are we? Yeah, home. Where is this home? I mean, do we have a country or a city or a town that is being referred to? Yeah, Egypt. What makes you believe that it's either Egypt or Sudan? So where is the Nile? The Nile is where? Where? Yeah, absolutely. This is what I'm saying. She mentioned, like Reem is saying, she mentioned the Nile, and the Nile happens to be in Egypt and Sudan, right? And of course other African countries, but obviously it's either Egypt or Sudan, right? Okay. So and nice, good. Okay, so this is okay. This is as far as the setting is concerned. Let's look at the setting. Is it? Remember, I told you that at one point that the setting can be instrumental in developing the events, in furthering the action of the short story. Have you seen that? Have you seen the action developing because of the setting? No. Mahaya is saying maybe. Maisa is saying the information gives the idea that the story happened in an Eastern country. Okay, okay. Let's go beyond that. Let's go. We're behind this already. Let's talk about the setting and how important it is. Do you think that the setting is playing a role in the development of events? It's either yes or no. Tell me. And don't overread the novel. Don't overinterpret the novel. Ahmad is saying, explaining the passion with beautiful expression of the silver rays. You're talking about something else. You're obviously... No, just focus on what we're saying, ya Ahmad, and give responses to what we're saying, okay? Okay. So, again, we're talking about how active the setting is. If you ask me, I don't believe that the setting played that big role in the unfolding of action in the short story. It doesn't have to do that. Remember, at the end, you're going to come up with an assessment. You're going to say that the short story is good or the short story is not that good. Not all stories are good, of course, and not all of them are bad. So feel free to say, no, this does not apply. I mean, the setting is not, wasn't that active or wasn't that instrumental in the development of events. That's fine. Maha is saying no, except for the response of her children to the hot weather, also her concerns about her neighbors. Yeah. So in the final analysis, if I'm going to come up with a conclusion about the setting, I'm going to say that the setting is just another setting. That the setting is not hasn't developed the action that much. Okay, good. So now that we have the setting behind us, setting means time and place, and we have already spoken about them. Okay, let's move to the characters. Okay, what did you notice and observe about the characters? Yeah, Reem is saying few, which is typical, by the way, Reem. When we're talking about short stories, you wouldn't have hundreds, no, I'm not hundred of, not hundred. You wouldn't have 15 or 20 characters in a short story, right? That wouldn't make sense given the fact that a short story is very brief, right? Maisa, forget about the setting now. We'll talk about it perhaps when the chance or the opportunity presents itself later. Just focus on the characters. So don't talk to me about something that we have already spoken about. Just focus on what I am discussing at the moment. Okay? So let's talk now. We're focusing on the characters. So Laila is saying we have the mother and her children. Yes, characters. Nice, very good. Okay. So what did you notice about the characters? Maha is saying that the nature of the characters is common. I'm not sure I understand, but it's okay. Dima is saying I think there was only one major character, which is correct. Muhammad is saying mother tried to give everything as her time and efforts. I'm not talking about whether she did that or not. Muhammad, I'm asking you to tell me about the characters. So you have the character of the mother, right? Who else do we have? We have her children. How many kids does she have? Yeah, she has a boy and a girl. Who's older, the girl or the boy? The daughter. Yeah, that's correct. Good. Okay. Okay. Do we remember when we spoke about characters? We said that you have, whenever you talk about characters, you talk about whether they are main, right? Main or minor characters, dynamic or static characters, right? Round or flat characters, right? So let's look at these characters within these parameters: dynamic or static, round or flat, right? Okay, what do you think? Let's focus on the main character. So the main character is round or flat? Round. Round means what? I mean, of course, she will be round if you compare her to the other characters. I mean, the characters of the kids. The kids doesn't show any development, okay? But if you talk in general, I haven't seen any, even including the character of the mother. I don't see development. Perhaps we're over interpreting or over reading the short story, but I'm trying to show you how to dissect and analyze a short story, how to break it down to its basic components. Okay? Okay, so we have, in terms of main and minor characters, you have the mother as a main character, and the rest of the characters are, of course, minor, right? Nice, good. Okay. Did you notice that we don't have names, that the characters are all nameless? Yes. Does this mean anything? Yeah, what does it mean? Normally, if you have a play or a novel, a short story, for the most part, where you don't have names, where the characters are nameless, is it meant by the writer? Yeah, sometimes it is not mystery, but you know, perhaps because the characters and what happens to them applies everywhere, always and everywhere. The characters, if we say that the setting is partly in Egypt, so it doesn't stick to Egypt, because we have those those concerns, the concern of a mother who is, like I said, divided between her duties and her desires. This does not apply to Egypt only. It does not apply to women in Saudi Arabia only. It applies everywhere. It applies to people, to women in America, for example. They have the same concerns, right? So perhaps the reason why the characters are nameless, because the writer is trying to send a message. Okay? A message, a universal message. She's trying to say that this is universal. It applies here in Egypt, where the setting is, and everywhere. The same issue the same concerns are everywhere. When we talk about women who are divided between their passions, their hobbies and interests, and their overwhelming duties at home, right? So that is a reason. Whenever again, whenever you have nameless characters in a novel or a play, you need to think, why are they nameless? And in most of the cases, they are nameless so that they can point to the fact that they are in every culture. Okay, they are not exclusive to one culture. The issues discussed and handled in the short story or the novel applies to all the culture, are not exclusive to one single culture. Do I make sense? Okay, good. Okay, so let's move away from characters and talk about plot. You know what a plot is? The plot is normally the storyline, right? More or less like the main events, like Abdullah Sarhani is saying. Yes. Yeah, Ahmed is also giving a definition by saying it's the flow of events and action. Abdul Muhsin is giving us the Arabic word, which is habka. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. Again, you need to set any plot. Okay, you normally have a generic plot, if you like. Generic means in most of all stories and novels, you have a beginning and a middle and an end. Okay, so this was in the past. And now whenever we have a plot or a new plot, we need to set it against this old structure, this old recipe, if you like. The recipe says that you have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay, so whenever you have a plot, you need to think of it against this set traditions. So do we have a plot in the traditional sense, where you have a beginning, a middle, and an end? Do we have that? Have you seen that? Have you? No, no, right? Okay. So what is it that you're seeing? You're seeing a snap shot, if you like. It's a situation. It's a what can I call it? It's a life situation. In a given day, or a given night, or a given early morning, and a very small encounter between the mother and her kids, right? And we're given the ideas that the writer is trying to communicate. So to say that that is a story in the traditional sense of the word would be not very correct, as a matter of fact. Right? Okay, nice. Okay, let's move to another element of fiction. Okay, let's move to point of view. So point of view means what? So whenever we talk about point of view, we talk about the narrator, who the narrator is, and whether the narrator, I mean, by knowing about the narrator, Are we getting certain perspectives? Are we getting certain messages? This is what we need to explore when it comes to narrators. Remember when we spoke about narrators, we said that you have narrator from the word narrative, from the word narration, and narrating is telling a story, is recounting what is happening, right? Okay. And we spoke about two types of narrative, perhaps more. You have first person narrative, where the predominant or the predominating pronoun would be I, or third person narrative, where the pronoun of choice would be he or she, right? So what kind of narrator do we have? Do we have first person narrator or third person narrator? Yes, Ahmed Fawaz is saying, and Maisa is saying first person narrator. Okay. Does this indicate any, does this point to anything? Does it say something to have first person narrator and not third person narrator? First person narrative and not third person narrative? Do you think this is meant by the writer? And what's the difference, if any? So we have established the fact that we have first person narrator. Okay. Yes. Good. So Abdullah is saying that when we have first person narrator, this may be more personal, which is partly true. Yasmin is saying the writer is telling her own story. Remember, I told you at one point never to mix or confuse the author or the writer and the characters. Never confuse. Okay, never confuse the author or the writer and the narrator. They are two different people. Okay? So don't fall into the trap of believing that the two entities are identical, because they are not. Okay, so again, you guys said that this is first person narrative, and with first person narration you have we have access, of course, to the character of the narrator himself or herself. And how do we get insights about the other characters? Do they speak for themselves? I'm asking you. No, they don't speak. They are not given the opportunity to speak for themselves. Who is speaking, or who is telling us about them? Not the writer. Don't confuse the writer with the narrator, Ya Abdul Wahab. It's the narrator, not the writer. Okay? So the one who is telling us about the other characters is the narrator, because she is first person. Okay. So what do you think of this technique when you have the first person narrator and he is obviously talking about himself and he or she speaks for the other characters? What do you think? This is objective? Can you trust the first person narrator? Do you believe that he or she would be trustworthy? Shouldn't people speak for themselves? What do you think? Yes. So if we have that, if we have a first person narrator, the least we can do is that we need from time to time to not to take what the writer is saying or the narrator is saying for granted. You need to challenge some of the thoughts that he or she is giving about the other characters. Don't take what the first person narrator is saying for granted. Okay? So we can only know about the other characters through the first person narrator, and this can be sometimes dangerous. In this case, we say that the first person narrator is omniscient, all-knowing, all-seeing. Okay? Somebody insists on that. Just give me a second. Okay. Can you still see me? Okay, good. Right. So am I overreading the short story? Do you think you don't have to agree with me, by the way? We don't have to agree. Okay? Okay. طيب. So it's first person narration that we have in the short story. And like I said, people normally have reservations when it comes to first person narrative because of the dangers involved, given the fact that the first person narrator has access to the minds of all the other characters. We're not given the opportunity to see or to hear them speak for themselves. Okay? Okay. So what else do we have? This is the point of view. So and this let's focus on the ideas presented through this lens or this angle of vision, if you like. So the first person narrator is obviously monopolizing the short story, given the fact that we only know about the characters through her eyes, right? Okay. So this is normally a good opportunity for this first person narrator to give us insights and ideas about himself or herself, about the world, and about the other characters. So what ideas did this first person narrator give us? What are the ideas? This is, by the way, moving to the theme area. Okay, so you have themes and ideas, and those themes and ideas are normally formulated and shaped by the perspective of the narrator, the angle of vision through which the narrator is seeing the events and even the characters. So let's talk about the issues involved, and this is moving to the theme area, the element of theme. Hmm. Okay, so I was asking a question, by the way. Yeah, Ahmed is saying the theme here would be a mother at home in specific location with children no, no, this is not the theme. The themes are about ideas, the ideas that you got now that you have read the short story. What slides? The reader can realize the difficulties when they read how many times the children interrupt her and the stressful responsibilities. Yes, yes, which stress the idea of, yes. So, okay. So when we talk about themes, we don't talk about details. I mean, you kind of capsulize the details and you come up with a phrase or a sentence that sums up the whole thing. Okay? So, what are the themes? I mean, somebody very nicely put it at the beginning of class today. I don't know who. I think it was Maha, when she spoke about the conflict between personal desires and family responsibilities. This was well said. Yasmin is saying the mother's attempts to work were interrupted continually by the demands of raising her child. This is well said, but we need to polish it and to trim it a little bit so that it can be like, you know, it shouldn't be as detailed as you're putting it, Yasmin, but you're doing a good job anyway. Again, the conflict, like Maha said at one point, we have a conflict, the conflict between personal desires, the conflict between interests and obligations, right? Haya is saying responsibility and passion. That's a very good way of putting it. Nice, very good, mashallah. You guys are doing an excellent job. Okay, so what is it that we should do now that we have analyzed the short story? So in terms, let's talk about style for a bit. Yeah, that too. Social demands and individual desires. Yeah, that's good. Okay, let's talk about style. And when I talk about style, I talk about the language used and how the language is manipulated to serve the purpose of the writer. So what do you think of the language? Whenever you talk about languages, or I'm sorry, whenever you talk about style in a novel or a short story, what is it that you look for? Or what do we normally have? Okay, you either have very simple style, okay, you either have also a journalistic style, very terse, it doesn't say a lot, very focused, you don't have details, you don't have descriptions, okay. Otherwise you have styles where writers are at ease with the language. I mean, they write, they describe and describe and describe. They use a lot of figures of speech, metaphors, similes, right? Part of the style would also be the idea of intertextuality, and I would like you to look this word up, or this concept. This is a big concept. Intertextuality means that the writer may quote other people, other works of art, other novels. I mean, proverbs and sayings, Quranic verses, as we're going to see with Salwa Bakr. This is called intertextuality. Okay, so this is also part of the style. Sometimes you have writers who keep to themselves. They never use anything from outside the text or the short story. They are self-reliant, if you like. Okay, so let's talk about Mona Ragab's short story. Let's talk about whether the short story is simple or complex, whether the language is simple or complex, whether we have elements of intertextuality in it or not. Let's look at the pace. Remember, when we talk about the pace and the rhythm, like Abdul Muhsin is saying, the rhythm, how quick or how slow it is. And they are all put together so that they can create a certain impression in you as a reader. So you're saying that it's simple, and Maha is saying that it is boring. I'm not sure I agree, but I mean, like I said the other day, everyone has a right to his opinion. Okay. Okay. So style we're talking about. Simplicity of style is not a bad thing, by the way. Okay. Being simple is not always bad, right? So do we have elements of intertextuality? Do we have a reference to other works in other novels or short stories, or do we have that? Where? I haven't detected any. We don't have that. I haven't seen that. Yes. Okay, good. I don't know whether this is good or I'm saying good because you agree. I mean, okay. Fine. Okay. Now that we have spoken about style, point of view, theme, setting, plot, what's your overall assessment of the short story? What do you think? If you're going to write a book review of this short story, you know what a review is. When you write a book review, you read a novel or a short story or a book, and then you write a review. It means that you write overall impressions about it and recommend it if it's recommendable in your opinion, and you recommend it to other people. This is called a book review. First of all, let me perhaps ask you whether you would like to recommend it to other people. And normally you recommend something because you like it, right? You wouldn't recommend a restaurant because you don't like it, for example. You don't recommend it to your family or friends unless you like it, right? Okay, so would you recommend, my question is, would you recommend this short story to others? Ahmad is saying I wouldn't. Okay, which means that he doesn't like it. Yasmin is saying no. Abdul Mohsin is saying yes. Maisa is saying yes. Okay, so those who say no has to come up with reasons, and those who say yes And this is going to, I have to also come up with reasons, and this would be your overall assessment of the experience. So I need somebody from those who say, from within the ranks of those who say yes, and tell us why they would recommend the novel. Let's start with those who would who finds who finds the short story recommendable. What would you tell others about? Let's just focus on, let's start with the positive and then move on to the negative. Okay, so I'm focusing now on positive reviews of the short story. Positive, I mean, if you think it's negative, wait a second. Yes, yes. Sahar is saying, you mean the short story in general? Yes, absolutely. Okay, Maisa finds the short story recommendable, and she's saying you may find yourself as a mother, sister, or wife as the hero in the story, and keep trying as the hero. She means that I mean, lots of people can identify themselves with the main character. Yes, especially women folk, I mean, or folks. Najwa Khalid is saying, I would say yes, because many mothers would feel good knowing that their struggles with life are related to many. That's good. Yeah. Okay. Any other positive reviews of the short story before we move to the negative? Okay, Maisa agrees with Najwa. Okay, so let's move to the negative reviews. Those who don't think the short story, this short story is a good one. Hence, the idea that they wouldn't recommend it to other people. Ahmed Fawzi said it could be entertaining, but it is not a new idea, and it could be summarized with keep trying to follow your dreams and goals regardless of the difficulties. There is no descriptions, it lacks details, no transition between the events, and overall it does not leave you with questions. Yeah, very well said. But this is a review in and of itself that Ahmed is giving us. Maha is saying, frankly, comparing it to Chekhov's short stories, I wouldn't recommend this. It is too simple. Yes, that's interesting. Again, it's about giving reasons why you think something is good or bad. It's not about saying, you can simply say, listen, Dr. Sam, I don't like Dr. Sam, for example. You can't say, or I like Dr. Sam. Obviously, you have to provide reasons in either case, whether you like or you don't like. This applies to the short stories. I like the short story because of this and that. I don't like it because of this and that. That's why we invested heavily on analysis. We spend so much time on analysis, right? So analysis is meant to help you come up with decisions, come up with assessments at the end of the whole thing. Sahar El-Sabbagh is saying short story is positive because it can give you a quick idea or easy advice quickly without any complexity. You're talking about the genre of short story in general, if I understood you correctly, Sahar. Laila is saying the mother advised all women to try and tell all the problems. I'm not sure I understood. Maisa is saying sometimes we like to read our struggles in few lines. That's okay. Abdul Muhsin is saying it gives you an idea in a simple way. I don't know whether this is a praise or a criticism. Praise, of course, is positive and criticism is negative. Anyway, we're going to now switch gears and move to the second short story, right? And the second short story is, just to remember, it's by Salwa Bakr. It's The Beautiful Undiscovered Voice, right? The Beautiful Undiscovered Voice by Salwa Bakr. A very I'm not going to say anything. I shouldn't say a very good or a very bad, because no, this is influencing your choices and decisions. Nobody should, whenever in your encounters and exchanges with each other, when you talk to each other, you shouldn't be saying that a short story is good or bad, okay, so that you don't influence the decisions of others. Okay, people need to read for themselves and come up with their own conclusion. This is ABC criticism. Okay, is that clear? And even if someone insists on imposing his views on you when it comes to understanding and reading and interpreting a work of art, I mean, listen to what he or she has to say, but you have to go and read it yourself and come up with your own original views and opinions and interpretations. Is that clear? I'm talking about I'm talking across the board. Even your teacher shouldn't impose his or her vision and opinion and views on you. Okay? Okay. So the second short story, like we said, would be That Beautiful and Undiscovered Voice. There is something that people also do, and I would like it to be one of your habit of yours, which is the idea of unpacking titles. The titles of novels and short stories are not given without good reasons. They are not random. They are not haphazard, if you like. Okay? So sometimes, before you start reading a short story, you need to think of the title, because it is significant. Okay? So what's the title of the second short story? It is That Beautiful Undiscovered Voice. That Beautiful Undiscovered Voice. Okay? Of course, it is already, I mean, it doesn't have freshness to it, given the fact that you have read the short story and know all about it. But as of any of the new short story, before you start reading, think of the title. Okay? Try to unpack the title. The title can tell you a great deal about the short story. Okay? So That Beautiful Undiscovered Voice by Salwa Bakr. Our approach, as you can see, is not biographical. It is formal, and formal is from form. It is technical. Okay? The biographical approach would be that you go straight away to the secondary sources and read about the short story. This is not correct, right? Which, I'm asking you again, which comes first? Reading the short story or reading about the short story? Excellent. So reading the short story, reading the work, and then after you have finished, and then after you have analyzed it, and then after you have come up with your own conclusions and assessments, you go to the secondary sources. You read about the short story or the work in general. Okay? Don't read reviews about the work. Don't read what other people are saying about the work until and unless you have finished reading the work itself. Is that clear? Okay? Again, it's all about getting affected and influenced by what other people are saying about the short story or the novel. If you read what they have, no, I need to read the story or the work for myself, and then I come up with my own conclusions, and then after that I look at the secondary sources, what is written about the short story. What is interesting about these short stories is that we don't have much criticism about them. We don't have much, we don't have lots of secondary sources about it. In this case, our views are going to be very original and are going to be very fresh, right? We're not inheriting criticism by others, right? Remember, the other day I was talking to you about Shakespeare, for example, and the plays that he wrote, and the fact that you normally you wouldn't say anything negative about Shakespeare because he is Shakespeare. So people don't allow themselves the chance or the opportunity to go and read and come up with their own fresh and original assessments of Shakespeare, right? And this is as bad as it is called the biographical approach. You look at the biography of the author and then you go and read the work. Of course, if everybody is telling that Shakespeare is excellent and everything, you will feel you will feel hesitant to say otherwise. You will keep to this line, right? So now we have a golden opportunity. We're reading works that are not much spoken about. Okay? Yeah. Okay. So we're going to apply the elements of fiction to the second short story. That beautiful undiscovered voice. So if we're adopting the biographical approach, we would go to Wikipedia or I don't know where and then start reading about Salwa Bakr and reading a summary of the short story. This is not criticism. This is not practical criticism. This is something that people do. They don't want to learn or to develop a skill. This is something that people do for exam purposes. No, they don't develop any skills, which is obviously bad. Okay? Okay. So again, we'll now implement the strategies that we have been talking about. So we have a number of elements, and we would like to see how they are introduced in the second short story, That Beautiful Undiscovered Voice. Okay. So what's the plot, if any? What's the storyline? Hello. Can you still hear me? Okay. I was talking about the plot of That Beautiful Undiscovered Voice. So people are typing, that's why I'm waiting. Ahmed Al-Fawaz is saying, unfortunately, I did not have the opportunity to read this short story. I only read I Will Try Tomorrow, which is fine. Yeah, Ahmed, you're doing a very good job. Thank you, no problem. Okay, I'm talking about the plot. Okay, and I'm asking you about the plot. Maisa is saying, to be honest, doctor, I just read I Will Try Tomorrow. I think we have to read only one. Okay, listen, if we have the time, we can, I mean, remember these are short stories, and the more you read, I mean, the more able you will be to kind of discuss and explore these things. So it's not about whether we have to choose one or not, yeah, Maisa. Abdul Wahab is saying it's about a housewife who feels that she can sing but no one encourages her. That's good. Yes, this is the storyline. What Abdul Wahab is saying sums up the whole thing, and this is what we mean by plot. Thank you, Abdul Wahab, for doing an excellent job. Haya is saying same to Ahmed and Maisa, the fact that they didn't have the chance to read the short story. Me too, I only read the first one, which is okay. Okay, طيب. But I don't want to spoil it for you. Like I said, I am warning people against having ready-made assessments of short stories and novels. Yasmin is saying it is about a housewife who discovers one day that she has a beautiful singing voice. Very good, Yasmin. Thank you so much. Yasmin is saying it's like about the silencing of the female voice. Okay, what you're saying now is theme. Or is one of the themes, Yasmin. Very good. No problem. No worries. I mean, if you haven't read it for today, you can always read it for next time. We're it's about the process يا جماعة. It's about the process, not the conclusions. We are trying to kind of teach you how to approach works of art, and this is going to help you with the other courses. Okay, the other the other English major courses, I mean. Okay, طيب. I wanted us to also, this is also practical. I would like you, I did some research about Salwa Bakr and Mona Ragab, and I noticed, especially with Mona Ragab, I noticed that she doesn't have a Wikipedia entry. She doesn't have a Wikipedia profile. Okay? So what I want us to do for the upcoming weeks, I would like us to do research about what's her name, Mona Ragab, so that in week 5 we can have profiles. We're going to choose a profile. So we all are going to write profiles about her and about her works. Okay, and then we're going to edit those profiles together. You're going to show them to me, and then I'll say, yeah, well, I mean, this part is irrelevant, this part is fine. And then we come up with a class profile that is the contribution of this and that person. And then we can always go to Wikipedia and post it on there. Yes. Okay. So we're going to develop a wiki profile for Mona Ragab. Okay. And you need to start from now. Start reading. Now that we have read the short story, alhamdulillah, now that we have analyzed the short story, and this is primary source, we did what we're supposed to do. Now we're going to go to the secondary sources. Okay, and the secondary sources are going to be two things. Secondary sources on and about the short story that we have, which is I Will Tomorrow, and secondary sources about the author herself, because we would like to make a profile for her on Wikipedia. Is that clear? Okay, okay, good. As for Salwa Bakr, Salwa Bakr is perhaps more academic and is not as light-hearted as the other lady, Mona Ragab. What I'm trying to say is that Salwa Bakr is the more serious type. Her short stories are heavy-handed in terms of length, in terms of ideas, and also the language. And remember the idea of intertextuality that I spoke to you about? She makes references to other works. She quotes from the Quran. She quotes from the folklore. She is a good read. You'll find her short stories a good read. So what is it that we want to do with Salwa Bakr for next time? By the way, next time we'll do Salwa Bakr and also Tayyib Saleh. Okay, for Tayyib Saleh we have a handful of dates. So 2 short stories next time. We have That Beautiful Undiscovered Voice, by Salwa Bakr, and we have a handful of dates by Tayyib Saleh. Okay, again, I don't want you to read about the authors. No biographical style or approach. You start with the primary source. You start with the short stories. You read the short stories. Okay? And after you have finished reading the short stories, okay, I would like you to give me reviews of these short stories. Okay? Is that clear enough? Okay, Sahar wants to leave. It's okay. Just okay, no problem. Okay, again. We're not done yet, of course. I'm just for next time, I would like you to write 2 book reviews, and these reviews are going to be on Salwa Bakr's That Beautiful Undiscovered Voice, and a handful of dates by Tayyib Saleh. You are going to apply the same strategies. You look at the characters, you look at the titles, you look at the style, you look at the different elements of fiction that we have been talking about. Okay? Is that clear enough? Next time, next time is going to also be again short stories, like I said. These two short stories that we're dealing with. One more thing about the assignments that I'm giving you for next time. I would like you, when you have finished, you have Mona Ragab, who happens to be a female writer. Wait. So you have Mona Ragab, who is a female writer, and you also have Salwa Bakr, who is also a female writer. I would like you to make comparisons between the two in terms of ideas and themes, and how they handle and manipulate these ideas and themes, in terms of the techniques both writers adopt and use. Okay? Right. Somebody's asking about the TMA, and we can always talk about it. We still have some time. Let me check where I left it. I think I have it. Or just give me a second. So TMA. I don't know where I left it. Yeah, I think it's here. No. And where is the TMA? Just give me a second. Okay, so can you see the TMA now? Okay. Let me just stress the fact that whenever you submit the TMA, it has to be in a Word file. No PDF files. You get a 0 if you submit your TMA in a PDF format. No images, because this was one of the problems that we met. Lots of students got a 0 because we couldn't open their files. The system only accepts Word files. Okay, don't make this mistake, because it can cost you the marks of the TMA. Okay, of course, it's the usual thing. You write your name, your ID, your section, and all these details. Of course, somebody was asking about this 100 marks, and we made it clear that it's out of 50. After we finish marking it out of 50, we can easily convert it to 50. But it's not, you don't have to worry about that. So it's out of 50. Okay. You need to write your TMA in an essay format. You don't write points. Okay. Of course, editing is very important. By editing, I mean that you don't submit unless and until you have read it again, drop the errors, look at the structure, look at the paragraphs, and see whether they flow, whether you need to effect necessary changes. Okay, but always remember to edit your work and proofread it before you submit it. Okay. And then you have the question, and it is only one topic or one question that you're having. So answer the following question in an argumentative essay. So it's an essay that you're going to write. An argumentative means that you're going to start an argument. An argument means that you're going to give your opinion and perhaps talk about the opinions of others. Okay, so it's not going to be descriptive. You're describing something and full stop. Okay, so that would require you to search for stuff and do your own research about the poem, and read it, and read what other people have to say about, but not until you have read the poem yourself, and not until you have understood it and analyzed it on your own. When you're done with that, you can go to the secondary sources. Okay. So what genre do we have? The TMA is addressing what genre? What's the genre here? I'm asking you. You know what a genre is? We spoke about genres before. Answer my questions. Don't ask him. When I ask you questions, you don't give me a question. Okay. So this is poetry. Yeah, the genre, like Yasmin and Maha are saying, this is poetry. Okay, this is poetry. Okay. So it's a poem that we have. It's a poem that we have. What's the name of the poem? The Road Not Taken. The Road Not Taken. So the first thing that you do is to read the poem. So are you going to read the poem the way you read a novel or a short story? No, it's different, right? Last time we spoke about the elements of poetry. We spoke about rhyme, rhythm, the fact that we don't have regular lines the way we see them in novels and short stories. No, it's very condensed. Whatever you say in a novel, perhaps hundreds of pages, you can you have it in a few lines in a poem. Hence, the greatness of poems and poetry. Okay, so poetry is about the condensation of ideas and feelings. Poetry is about the musical effect that it creates on your ears and within your soul, within you. Okay. So your analysis should reflect that. You're not telling me what the poem is about, because this is something that you can get from the internet or off the internet, right? It's more complicated and more complex than that. It's about analysis. It's about seeking and finding those musical effects that make this poem, timeless. Timeless in the sense that people like it down through the ages. It has been there for scores and scores of years, and people like it. It is still studied across the board. Okay? So what is the question that you're going to answer using the essay format and by establishing an argument? So to what extent do the speaker's thoughts and feelings change throughout the poem? You have a speaker or the persona of the poem, and obviously his thoughts and feelings change. The speaker or the persona of the first part is different from the speaker and the persona of the last part. How and why are questions that you should answer by analyzing the poem. Okay? Explain your answer with reference to the poem and its poetic devices. So in order for the poet to reach the conclusions that he reached, he used and employed a number of devices, poetic devices. So what you're going to explain what these devices are, but not in points. Remember, it's an essay format that you're using. Okay? So what do people do? People make drafts. First of all, you divide it into a number of stages. I mean, writing the TMA. You start off by reading the poem. So reading the poem very well, right? By kind of exploring the different elements of the poem. What makes the poem a poem, right? Remember when we spoke about the elements. Everything has elements. Okay? So you explore these elements. What makes this poem a poem, and what makes it different from other poems, perhaps. Okay, so when you have read the poem very well, when you have understood the poem very well, on your own, of course, when you have analyzed the poem very well, when you made your own judgments and assessments of the poem, okay, you go and read about the poem. You read secondary sources, what critics said about the poem. And then you integrate the two, your reading, your understanding, your judgments along with those of others. And then you write a draft, and most of the time you don't feel happy with the draft, and then you start changing here and there. You can consult me, for example, what do you think of this, what do you think of that, and then until you think you have exhausted everything, and you cannot come up with a better product, then you submit it. Okay, so this is a very good exercise in writing a piece of research. If you do what I'm telling you, you will be able to write good pieces of research. Okay, so it's a good experimentation with research at this very early stage. Okay, insist on doing your own research. Don't copy and paste. Don't rely heavily on the internet, because it backfire, or it backfires, I'm sorry. Okay, so look at the internet as a resource, or a resource among others. It's beautiful and everything, but it shouldn't decide for you. Copying and pasting is not acceptable, and it gets you a 0. Okay, we're here, I think, to learn, to develop skills, right? We are all serious, and I think so far, from what I have seen and observed about your performance and behavior, you guys are very serious. You're taking it very seriously, and you're learning a thing or two every class we meet. In fact, keep it up. Keep it up. Don't spoil it by taking stuff as is from the internet. Am I making sense? Okay, good. I think we'll end on this item and with this note, unless you have questions. I'll allow 2 minutes for any further questions before we call it a day. Not really. This is the impression that we normally get, that that we have more than the space can allow. No, I mean, that's why we're saying you start with a draft, and then when you have a draft, and then you narrow down the ideas and the words, and then you have your final draft. Just try. Try, work with the draft, and see what will come out. If you're going to read, you have to have a list of references. If you're going to read from outside, of course you're going to read secondary sources. You're going to read ideas by others. How come you will not have a reference list? This is called academic integrity. Even if we don't ask you for references, you insist on having a list because you have read other people's ideas. Okay, and the least you can do is to acknowledge their work by mentioning their names. Muhammad, there is more to the TMA than just explaining or describing lines, Muhammad. It's bigger than that. It's about analysis. And then after you analyze, you come up with assessments. Just try your hand and make a draft, and then we can always talk about it. This is happening. This is going to happen soon, inshallah. Okay. Any other? Okay. طيب, on this note and with this item, we come to the end of today's class. Thank you for coming, and it has been a real pleasure meeting you this afternoon.